Pinkertons Ghosts is a horror anthology podcast by Superversive Radio, with no affiliation with any detective agency, person, real or imagined, or the dark forces of Outre Terre. It is not intended for children.
Agent Irish here. Bill Irish. I've tackled a lot of monsters and chased a lot of ghosts for the Paranormal Pinkertons. Never once have I had thoughts of quitting. I come from a hardy breed. We cleared timber all across the Oregon Trail until finally settling down and establishing our own logging company in Snohomish. I would have worked the same job if it hadn't been for that one bad night in the haunted hotel in Tacoma. But that's a tale for another time. This most recent case, the one that pushed me to the point of resignation, involved kids. I hate cases that involve kids, especially when said kids get spiritually invaded by fleshless fiends from the invisible world. I really hate that. Things get messy, tears are shed, and too much innocence is lost all at once. I was given the case file and told to hit the road on a Monday morning. Halfway to the location, which was in a tiny Michigan town called Morrow, I pulled over and parked it at a 24-hour diner advertising the best coffee in the tri-state area. I put the ad to the test. I found the coffee decent, but nothing to write home about. Control sent me this message, quote, "Investigate reports of Satanism, demonic possession, and the conspiracy to spread information that could lead to possession. Originally, this investigation began as a teen coven, to be relegated to local leadership and parents. As you will see from the reports, it's become anything but. Investigate, find the source of the problem, and put it to an end." End quote. The file included several printouts of email exchanges, a few written reports, and a handful of pictures. Each one looked ripped from a social media account. I studied the pictures the closest. They showed a collection of teens, none older than 15. I gathered from the emails that the kids were high school freshmen from Morrow, and each one had recently gotten into a whole lot of trouble. Brian Stewart, 14, was in juvenile detention for physically assaulting his English teacher, Mr. Williams. Elizabeth Whitehair, 15, was temporarily placed into a state psychiatric hospital after her parents found her covered in blood next to the mutilated corpse of the family's pet ferret. The rest seems tame in comparison. Nothing more than a prank or childish rebellion. Except for one, their leader, Edward Michael Leach. Old Eddie had a doozy of a biography at 15 years old. His parents were long out of the picture thanks to drugs, so Eddie's grandparents were his caretakers. Neither could adequately raise the young man, as both were north of 80. As a result, all evidence pointed to the fact that Eddie was raised by the internet. At 13, he declared himself a Satanist, and was sent home from school multiple times for obscene bathroom graffiti and making lewd gestures to any authority figure, including the lunch ladies. The next year, Eddie made a local stink after he renounced his gender and his taxonomic species by declaring his new identity as a female dragon. He demanded that he be called Magresta the Great. His classmates reacted as one might expect, and Eddie went ballistic. After a trial, he wound up in a type of home confinement reserved only for adolescents. As shocking as all of this behavior was, it paled in comparison to the dramatic 180-degree turn that Eddie pulled off last year by becoming a math prodigy. Eddie Leach, one-time Satanist and immortal dragon, won laurels as the Math Bowl champion of Morrow and Eaton County. The state had high hopes for their rising star, especially over overcoming such a troubled past. An internal email from the governor's PR department made great hay about the idea of having Eddie as the new poster boy for Morrow revival. The usual sort of propaganda campaign designed to trick the residents into thinking about math rather than the fact that a Chinese company had purchased the local chemical conglomerate with Lanzing's blessing. The governor's plan turned to dust the moment when Eddie got caught cheating. And not just cheating, but cheating on a grand scale. Using the username BelethBeliever777, Eddie had been providing students all across the world with test answers, math Olympics at first, but then SAT and ACT. Scores rose nationally as a result. The kid from Miracle was directly responsible for giving false hope to the Department of Education bureaucrats, who believed that, finally, after decades of wasted effort, America's rural and urban youth took math seriously. And he did it all through TikTok and YouTube. As Beheleth Believer 777, Eddie Leach provided the plugged-in generation with frantic, almost dizzyingly short videos with names like Hottest Test Prep and Here's How to Ace Your Next Quiz with Beheleth. I watched a few of the videos. I hated them all. The fake enthusiasm and insane speed of them made me uneasy. Each one demonstrated invocations of something called the Beheleth Ritual for any nervous test takers. At first glance, the ritual seemed more like a daydream than diabolical. Eddie called on his viewers to use a blank sheet of paper and 2 broken pencils to create a 4-cornered quadrant before each test. Each quadrant was labeled with a 7, while the center called for a strange sigil design. I studied a photograph. My heart sank deeper into my stomach. The sigil included several filigreed curlicues encircling a rudimentary horn. The horn's player proved to be a cat's head with a thick white stripe bisecting its eyes and nose. Speaking of the eyes, they appeared uneven, unmatched, and unequal in size. The left eye, with its inky black pupil, dwarfed its neighbor. The right eye squinted with cataracts, while the left scowled directly at the viewer. The final piece of the sigil was a small, detached cat's paw holding up 3 digits. I put the photograph down and asked for another cup of coffee. In the very back of the file was a slim volume bound in black and red. I looked at the title. Pseudomonarchia Daemonum. Like all field agents, I knew of Johann Weier's grimoire. It's not something you should carry on you. I read, Beheleth, King of Hell, leader of 8-5 demonic legions. Conjured by horn music. Was invoked by Ham after the deluge in order to create mathematics. Math. The little urchin had never renounced black magic, and was now, thanks to the internet, letting one of the rulers of hell into Miracle under the guise of math tutoring. I finished my coffee, paid the tired-looking waitress, and got back on the road and did not stop until I reached the troubled hamlet. I found Miracle dead and buried on a Tuesday night. The central business district, which consisted of a main strip with several small side street tributaries, was devoid of light and life. I did not even bother to stop at the single red light. I kept on going until I reached 224 Deerfield Park Lane, the home of the Leach family. The family's home looked shrunken and dirty, almost as if it were trying to collapse in on itself. The weight of sin rode heavy. I knocked on the door. A small, shriveled old woman answered.
Yes?
She asked through partially clenched teeth. My name is Irish, Bill Irish. I believe one of my colleagues contacted you last Friday about my arrival. The woman cocked an eyebrow at me. Confusion rode across her face like the demon Beheleth on a white horse. To clear the mental fog, I said a few keywords. Paranormal Pinkertons, your son, possession, exorcism. On the last one, she almost fell to her knees. She clasped her hands in prayer, and small patches of water formed at the corners of her eyes.
Thank God you have come,
she said.
We can't take much more of this. He is making us live in fear in our own house. It's unbearable.
It'll be okay, Mrs. Leach. Where is he? The old woman used a crooked and trembling finger to point towards the home's rear. I took some time to study the interior. The whole home was draped in gloom. The kitchen was black and empty, while the living room was kept somewhat illuminated by an ancient dust-covered floor lamp. Underneath the lamp sat Mr. Leach. His emaciated body was wrapped entirely in a simple white blanket. Despite my best efforts at a greeting, the old man merely looked forward at the television with vacant eyes. I'd say he was dead, but I saw him breathe.
Eddie has done a number on him, Mr. Irish,
Mrs. Leach whispered.
His heart is weak. I don't think he'll last much longer. Best to keep him occupied, and he likes nature shows.
She smiled at me just as the TV showed a lion sinking its fangs into a frightened gazelle. "That's a fine idea," I said to the poor woman. I made my way to the back of the house, where a single door awaited me. The floor was scuffed and bruised like a pugilist's face, with Eddie's room painted across the top. The door clued me in on what to expect inside. I checked my clothes and made sure that the standard issue items were there. Pocket Bible, including the rites of exorcism, a vial of holy water, and various silver and iron-bladed weapons just in case the creature had full and total control of Eddie Leach. I knocked once. When nobody answered, I tried the doorknob. To my surprise, the room was unlocked. Eddie's room proved even darker than the rest of the house. The room was small, barely big enough to contain a bed, a dresser, and a computer stand. Piles of dirty clothes decorated the floor, and all the dust forced me to stifle more than one sneeze. Someone was covered with a stained blanket on a broken-down bed. It did not react to the light. I turned first to the computer. I found that it was completely unplugged. A small yellow legal pad sat on the stand. I used the light from my cell phone to study it. The whole thing was covered in math problems. Not just basic arithmetic, either, but highly advanced calculus and trigonometry. Way too advanced for a freshman burnout like Eddie Leach, who I confirmed dead asleep on his bed. I hovered over his sleeping body. His eyes were closed, but his mouth was wide open. 3 flies buzzed around his open maw. I tried to shoo them away, but they kept circling back. I reached down and checked the young boy's pulse. I found nothing. I checked his extremities. His fingers were freezing, and when I pulled lids up, I saw nothing but the whites of his eyes. Eddie Leach, the reason for the strange happenings in Morrow, was dead at just 15. I removed the pocket Bible from my coat and prepared to read a final prayer for the deceased. My holy actions were interrupted by an unexpected sound. The computer somehow turned on and came to life. The familiar digital static preceded the growth of a sickly blue light. The light grew in shape and intensity until it became a disembodied head. I peered hard into the light and watched until the floating head went from being indistinct and vague to visible and known. The head belonged to a young man prone to scowling and smirking at the same time. Life suited him, as death had begun to melt his features. Dark brown hair reached down to the busy eyebrows, and together both touched the beginning of a long and thin nose. The mouth was as cruel as it was mischievous. Small and sharp white teeth appeared occasionally as the disembodied head mouthed silent words. Unlike the real Eddie Leach, this false avatar of the boy had offset eyes with an enlarged left one. Its black iris bore a hole through my soul.
Not exactly what you expect to find, eh, Billy?
Everything about the voice was unnerving. It was simultaneously prepubescent and mature. It sounded both male and female at the same time, and as it spoke, it sang a little. A layman would not know it, but a veteran paranormal Pinkerton like me knew right away that I was being addressed by an elemental force. The creature on the screen had never been born, nor had it ever walked the earth in flesh. It was a demon, and it wore Eddie Leach's face like a skin suit. Beheleth. Low horns sounded as I said his name.
Ah, you think knowing my name matters at all? Millions of people know my name thanks to the vessel left behind on that mattress. My name does not matter.
What matters then?
Numbers matter, Detective. Can't you tell that I just love numbers?
The demon said. Sure. I used to think math was for the devil when I was in school. Now I know it's true. Beheleth howled in mocking laughter. The fake mirth irked my ears, but not so much as the growing crescendo of unseen horns playing from the speakers.
You're a funny soul, Irish. I will feel a little remorse in your death, which is coming soon.
Is that a promise?
Of course.
I slowly reached into my coat's pocket and gently removed the vial of holy water. With my thumb and forefinger, I unsealed the wax cap and prepared to dump its contents on the computer. I stayed my hand, though. I needed Beheleth to gloat. In gloating, demons often give away their blasphemous plans, and I was already sick of the investigation. Demons talk lofty, but their goals are always the same. The spread of evil and fall of mankind to hell. You have to tell me, Beheleth. I cannot see how you plan to kill me. So far, all you have done is turn a lot of school kids into math enthusiasts. Seems like your kind is doing good for once. For all I know, Eddie died of a fentanyl overdose.
Such a stupid man,
the demon cackled.
Such a limited intelligence. I thought that you, a paranormal Pinkerton, would at least grasp the bigger picture.
I guess I'm dumb then, because all I see is an ugly mug on a computer screen that is not doing much of anything at all. Beheleth laughed again, but this time there was a sharp edge of anger. I was starting to get to the demon.
Math is a universal language. This has been true since our adherents first attempted to make the Great Tower in Babylon based on our geometry. Even today, despite advanced and fully secularized systems, our little bit of magic, our special set of theories and equations and algorithms dominate the spiritual world of the internet. The whole thing runs on occult mathematics to produce what a commoner sees as instant magic. And do not doubt it. The internet is indeed a godhead, a demiurge. You lot just haven't blessed it yet.
Can't see priests and pastors laying hands on a modem, I quipped.
But they should,
Beheleth said.
Their failure to sanctify the internet has allowed us free entry to it. A big mistake for your holy men. Now we can swallow up your children. There's a lot of Eddie Leeches out there, Billy.
So that's the plan, right? You're going to do this. I pointed at the corpse of Eddie Leach. To more kids. Beheleth smiled.
Your car is fine this time of year, and all these bored kids probably need a fun distraction. I think it's time to make Beheleth Believer 778. It won't be hard. The algorithm will encourage it.
I snapped into action and shot a healthy portion of holy water towards the computer screen. The water caused the monitor to make a series of odd grinding noises, and I saw at least one electrical spark fly. Yet, Beheleth's horrible face remained. The demon laughed and laughed.
Poor move, Paranormal Pinkerton. You better save what holy water you have left. Now excuse me. I need to go viral.
The face disappeared instantly, thus plunging the room back into darkness. I turned on my heels and exited the room. In the chairs in front of the TV, Mr. and Mrs. Leach looked to be both fast asleep with their mouths wide open. A small army of flies kept them company. I did not bother to check their pulses, for I knew the answer already. I raced back outside into the night. The previously sleepy town of Miracaw had come alive with a cacophony of screams. Every house along Deerfield Park Lane was aglow, and every house seemed to be a crime scene in action. I picked the next house over and used my shoulder to break down the front door. Inside, I found two middle-aged parents being beaten half to death by a tall, lanky, and pale teenager armed with a cell phone and a skillet. I could hear the cell phone playing a short YouTube video. I recognized the squeaky voice of Eddie Leach, but this time he was talking about the tyranny of mothers and fathers rather than the benefits of math. The sigil was front and center, pulsing across the screen. "Drop that skillet, kid, in the name of Christ!" Angry laughter burst from the phone. I saw that the kid had headphones on. Well, I never expected to not get physical. I sprinkled a few drops of holy water onto my fingers. I jabbed, without doing too much damage, the boy's throat. Holy water doesn't need much. The reaction was immediate. The boy dropped the bloodied skillet and his phone and reached for unseen wounds on his neck. He started to gag and gurgle as small flecks of spittle caked his mouth. After a few seconds of struggle, the boy closed his eyes and stayed still on the carpet.
Is he dead?
Asked the shell-shocked mother. No, I said. He just needs to rest for a bit. I reached down and picked up the cell phone. I put the item in my pocket without bothering to turn it off. I sprinted to the house's neighbor and found a similar scene. This time, a small teenage girl was busy flinging several objects, including a badly damaged Xbox, around the house. Only a laptop was left unharmed, likely because it was busy playing a nonsensical video wherein a disembodied head sung a silly song from underneath a toilet seat. I looked at the screen and recognized the singer as Beheleth. I used one of my consecrated knives to shatter the thin screen on the laptop, which not only ended the demon's song, but also caused the teen girl to calm down and then collapse in a panic attack. Every subsequent house was the same. I found a crazed teenager busy doing violence to objects or parents. Each one of the possessed had on them a cell phone or a laptop computer nearby, and each device was busy blaring one of Beheleth's videos. I destroyed every gadget, which usually ended the havoc quickly. Some of the more violent teens had to be physically restrained and handed over to bewildered police officers. Usually, Paranormal Pinkertons work with an experienced police officer aware of the weirder facts of life. No joy. I had to explain to the lawmen that a hypnotic algorithm had infected the teenagers' minds. It's hard for common men to accept demons, and I had to change my story a few times. None of the teens died during our work, but it was close. By midnight, most of Morrow had been pacified. I was exhausted, and even more sick of dealing with the governor's rapid response team, who only seemed interested in preventing bad publicity. I think I signed at least 2 NDAs that legally forbid me from talking about that night's activities with anyone. Some official was even implying I would be blamed for it all. Joke's on them. I was already talking to the Paranormal Pinkerton lawyer, Pittance St. Devay. I don't know where we found him, but the man ate, slept, and breathed litigation. At 1 a.m., I got hold of my section manager, Jack Morrow, at the Paranormal Pinkertons and told him to do something, anything, to kill the power in Eaton County. 2 minutes later, an unexpected power surge knocked out the lights throughout Middle Michigan. I wanted to feel relief, but Beheleth refused to let me relax. The cell phone in my pocket buzzed. I reached for my personal device, but found it quiet and still. It was the cell phone that I had taken off the skillet-wielding teen and found it vibrating. Beheleth scowled at me from the screen.
The internet is more than miracle, Paranormal Pinkerton! He screamed. You thought I was joking about the algorithm? The internet is global!
The screen went dead. The phone self-immolated as an internal fire erupted and soon engulfed the whole device in a foul-smelling flame. I let the cell phone melt in the cold, hard Michigan dirt. I said a prayer with my eyes closed. I then got in my car and called up Jack to provide a furious debrief. I requested a temporary shutdown of all internet traffic until a complete exorcism could be performed. It was a tall order, and I was informed that such a daunting request could not be answered in hours, let alone days. I prepared myself for more bad news. I was ordered back on the road. My new mission was to contain the Beheleth Ritual virus for as long as possible. And that is what I did for months on end with very little sleep. If it wasn't for the Vatican agents. I crisscrossed every state in the Midwest several times over. I locked screaming and bloody possessed kids inside of Chicago and Milwaukee apartments, and I had full-on Donnybrooks with homeschooled students sequestered in farmhouses in Indiana and Iowa. Everywhere and every time I found Beheleth taking another mind and soul with means designed to turn them spiritually sick. I fought the demon up until everything went dark. I was busy on a mission in Kansas when, without warning, my cell phone lost internet connection. At the same time, all computers, all television screens, and all Wi-Fi capable devices went to sleep before rebooting back to life 5 minutes later. Office Scuttlebutt informed me that in those 5 minutes, the entire world was placed on the precipice of Armageddon. In some countries, people even resorted to suicide rather than experience such a prolonged interruption of digital content. I, for one, enjoyed those minutes. They meant the end of my long and tiresome assignment. I walked out of that last Kansas suburb and did not bother to look back. Beheleth had been purged from the internet, from history, cache, and active watching. And that meant that I could go home and finally sleep. I did just that. I spent over a month doing nothing at all up in Washington. I got blissfully bored looking at all the apple trees in my backyard. When it was time to come back to work, it took a lot of willpower to pick up my cell phone and put it into my pocket after leaving it turned off for so long. Well, here I am now, back on the job. A new case file arrived on my desk today. I have already read its contents. It appears that there's been another outbreak of cheating, this time in Wisconsin. Turns out a school for Indian migrants had had some strange results in the standardized test. The subject? Math, of course.
Pinkerton's Ghosts is a podcast distributed by Superversive Radio, licensed under an attribution non-commercial, share-alike international license. This video was written by Ben Wheeler and performed by Son of Sonnet. If you liked this video, please consider hiring Son of Sonnet at his Fiverr account. Link provided in the description. Visit us on Facebook, read articles on superversivesf.com, or listen to us on unauthorized Acast, iTunes, or Spotify. Contact us through Twitter at @PinkertonsGhost, email us at pinkertonsghosts@gmail.com, or send us noble messenger possums with messages strapped to their backs. Don't worry, they know how to find us. Thank you for listening, and good luck.